Hello? Have you ever heard someone say, you can't really be close to God and be rich? Or maybe, God prefers the poor. Rich people are too attached to money. It sounds spiritual, but is it true? Let's go back, way back, to see what the Bible actually says. Let's start with a man named Abraham. Not only was Abraham called the friend of God, he was also extremely wealthy. Genesis 13:2 says, Abram was very rich in livestock, in silver, and in gold. That's not poetic. That's economic reality. He had large herds of animals, servants, precious metals, and even his own private army. Yes, in Genesis 14, when his nephew Lot was kidnapped, Abraham mobilized 318 trained men born in his own household to rescue him. He wasn't just a family man, he was a powerful tribal leader with resources that rivaled kings. Now let's pause and imagine, what would all that be worth today? Economists and scholars have tried to calculate it. If you combine livestock, silver and gold reserves, land, and human resources, Abraham's wealth would likely be valued at $100 million to over $1 billion USD today. That would make him the equivalent of a Fortune 500 CEO or even a tech mogul. And yet, God didn't just tolerate him. He called him my friend. And Abraham wasn't the only one. His son Isaac inherited more than land. He inherited favor. Genesis 26:12-13 says, Isaac planted crops in that land, and the same year reaped 100-fold, because the Lord blessed him. The man became rich, and his wealth continued to grow until he became very wealthy. Let's think about that. His wealth didn't appear overnight. It grew and multiplied, not by luck, but by God's blessing. In fact, Isaac became so powerful and influential that the Philistines, the neighboring people, came to him and said, "Move away from us. You have become too powerful for us." Imagine that. A man so blessed by God that an entire nation saw him as an economic and political threat. And then we have Jacob, Isaac's son. Jacob started with nothing. He left home with only a staff in his hand, fleeing from his brother Esau. But God was with him, and over the years, Jacob built a vast household. Through hard work, wisdom, and divine favor, Jacob became a patriarch of prosperity. He made smart deals, managed large herds, and employed many servants. When he finally returned home, he gave his brother hundreds of animals as gifts, just from his surplus. That kind of generosity only comes from abundance. Let's stop and reflect. Abraham, extremely rich and a friend of God. Isaac, so blessed that kings feared him. Jacob came with nothing, left with wealth and legacy. Clearly, God is not against prosperity. In fact, He delights in it when your heart is aligned with His. Now someone might ask, but what about the New Testament? Wasn't Jesus always warning about riches? Great question. Let's talk about the rich young ruler. He came to Jesus asking how to inherit eternal life. Jesus saw right through him and said, "Sell everything, give to the poor, and follow me." And the man? He walked away, sad. Why? Because he loved his wealth more than he loved God. His identity was tied to his possessions. That was the issue, not the wealth itself, but the heart behind it. And just to be clear, not all rich people in the New Testament walked away from God. Some actually helped build the church. Take Lydia, for example. In Acts 16, Lydia is described as a seller of purple cloth, an elite and expensive product worn by royalty and the rich. She was a successful businesswoman, but she was also a worshiper of God. When Paul preached, she responded immediately and even invited him and his companions into her home. Her house became the first church gathering place in Philippi. Lydia didn't have to give up her wealth to follow Jesus. She simply gave God first place and used her prosperity to advance the kingdom. The Bible never says money is evil. It says in 1 Timothy 6:10, "The love of money is the root of all kinds of evil." Money is a tool, a servant, but it makes a terrible master. Psalm 35:27 says, "Let the Lord be magnified, who has pleasure in the prosperity of his servant." God doesn't oppose prosperity. He's against pride. He's against putting things above him. So can you be rich and still please God? Abraham did. Isaac did. Jacob did. Lydia did. The real question isn't how much do you have? It's what owns your heart. If your wealth serves God's purpose, it becomes a blessing. If it replaces God's purpose, it becomes a curse. If this message spoke to you, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to the CorePath. Let's keep growing in truth, wisdom, and faith together. Until next time, stay rooted.